Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I'm coming to y'all today with a June 27th Rico report, a Washington Commanders report. Of course, with these, we have so many different random topics, just super random, none of them necessarily related to each other. Literally, the only common ground that all of these topics have to each other is that they involve the burgundy and gold in some way, shape, or form. We have different topics to talk about today, like we have new partners with the Washington Commanders now on the business side. Bieniemy hat policy exposed by Samuel Cosme. Of course, every Rico report is going to include a lot of random, crazy, and shocking stats, and of course, much more. But before we dive into everything, as a disclaimer, a lot of these topics I will not be doing like really deep dives into, more so just telling y'all what generally happened or what was generally said, because this video has so many different random topics. So if you want more information on any of these topics than I dive into this video, then make sure you go look them up separately, because there are some really interesting topics and stats here. But if I were to dive into every single topic in this video like I usually do when I talk about things in other videos, we'd be here for at least 2 hours minimum. So this is your typical Rico report where we're flying through a bunch of Commanders information and updates, and we're just keeping it pushing rapid fire. So before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I really appreciate y'all for being patient with me. I'm trying to get these videos out as often as I can, but just super randomness, all kinds of stuff going on. But I appreciate y'all for supporting, for leaving likes, for leaving comments and everything like that. And I got y'all updated, especially anything that goes on with the Commanders. Y'all know I got y'all. I'm working on a Brandon Ayuk update video because there were some things that happened since I talked about him a couple of days ago that I need to update y'all on, so that'll probably be tomorrow. And without further ado, man, I appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and dive into this video. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so topic number one. Some people are saying that they thought Daniel Snyder actually blocked Jeff Bezos from buying the Commanders, but the Financial Times actually reported recently that Jeff Bezos just simply was outbid by Josh Harris and the whole group of investors that are all with him, in Magic Johnson, David Blitzer, all of those guys. So that is some important clarification there if anybody was wondering. And Josh Harris even had an interview with CNBC all the way back on June 5th, and he talked about how he thought Josh Harris would outbid him, of course, because he has more money, but I guess Josh Harris wanted it more than Jeff Bezos wanted it, even though Jeff Bezos does have more money. Again, there's like a whole, just like I gave y'all the disclaimer for earlier in the video, if you want to dive into that and watch the actual interview, that is out there. Just go look at Josh Harris talking about buying the Commanders on CNBC. It happened all the way back on June 5th. And then also a quote from it: "We created this incredible group and ultimately went through a super complicated process, which I can go into, but basically it was one of the harder deals I've ever had to accomplish," unquote. And that's from Josh Harris talking about the deal to buy the Washington Commanders last year. And he also discussed the NFL's changing views on private equity funding, because this was an unprecedented way that they went about buying this team. This has never been done before. Like when I was talking about the whole process with y'all while he was trying to buy the Washington Commanders from Dan Snyder last year, around this time, maybe like a month before last year, it was, the whole situation was, I mean, yeah, they have the money, but we don't have any rules or standards set into place for a deal like this, where there are just so many people involved in purchasing a team, where like the majority owner, I think Josh Harris, he owns the largest percentage out of everybody, but he's not even a majority owner. He just happens to own the largest percentage out of everybody else, but he doesn't even own 50% of the team himself. So this was just like a really weird situation. It was really like Josh Harris and company trailblazing a new way. And now that they've successfully done so, and almost a year into after buying the team, buying the Commanders, and the fact that everything's running so smoothly, the NFL's had no problems. They've even helped clean up a lot of Dan Snyder's messes, like having to pay that money and that settlement for when Dan Snyder was withholding money from season ticket holders that he was supposed to give back to them and things like that. So since they've been doing everything so smoothly since he's bought the team, it's pretty much a situation where the NFL is now opening their eyes like, okay, maybe that isn't so bad. If Josh Harris and company can do it, they trailblazed the whole thing. This was like a whole new thing for us, the NFL, everybody involved. It went so well for them. Maybe we'll be more open-minded to letting other people purchase teams this way. So, hey, shouts out to Josh Harris and company for basically setting a good example for how weird and complicated you can be as far as buying an NFL franchise. Now, moving on. As of right now, shouts out to JP Finley for pointing this out back on June 4th. As of right now, Washington only has 7 players with guaranteed money in 2025, as you can see on the screen right now. When Adam Peters talks about optionality, that's what he means. If Jaden proves to be the dude, they can spend big money should they choose. So that is the tweet from JP Finley. He brings up a good point. Also, another good observation is the fact that Andrew Wiley is not one of them. So if you're not a big Andrew Wiley fan, even though he is on contract beyond 2024, he doesn't have any guaranteed money. That's where things get complicated, because Jonathan Allen, another guy that's technically on contract beyond this 2024 season, but he doesn't have any guaranteed money beyond this point. Terry McLaurin doesn't have any guaranteed money beyond 2024 as well. So things get a little weird. Austin Eckler, he's on the roster, no guaranteed money. Jeremy Reeves on roster, no guaranteed money. So things are going to get really interesting moving forward. Just something to keep in mind when we're talking about, oh, the Commanders have this much cap space. We have the second most cap space in the NFL, but it's for a reason, because technically a lot of these guys that we're paying not only do not have guaranteed money, that's a whole one thing, but then even on top of that, beyond what we just looked at just a couple of seconds ago, we also have a lot of guys on the last year of their deals or on 1 year prove-it deals that we just signed this offseason, and all of them are not just on the roster at all. They're not under contract, period. At least Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, Andrew Wiley, and these guys, even though they don't have guaranteed money in 2025, at least they're on contract for the Commanders in 2025. A lot of our roster isn't on contract at all beyond this season. Just something to keep in mind. Yeah, we have a lot of cap space, but we also have a lot of empty roster spots when we're projecting going into the 2025 season. And then also, shouts out to Dove Kleeman. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. But he provided this graphic right here. You're going to see some random stats and graphics from him throughout this video. We're probably just going to go ahead and run through a lot of statistics just in a row. Here's one interesting one right now, as you can see on your screen. And this is a terrible graphic for the Washington Commanders. Like, absolutely awful. This stat is games allowing 35 plus points in the last 2 seasons. As you can see, for the Washington Commanders, we are in a tier of our own as far as just being sorry. Like, we are just our own different level of trash. We exceed at being awful, basically, based on this chart. Nobody can out-sorry the Washington Commanders when it comes to allowing 35 points in the game over the last 2 seasons, is all this graphic tells me. I mean, the fact that nobody else is even close, there's a gap of 7. Nobody allows 7. We allow 8, and then other teams allow 6 or less. That's absolutely pitiful, especially since we were supposed to be dependent on our defense to be the best part of the team to carry the offense, and that never seemed to work out at all. Under Jack DeVille and Ron Rivera, seemed like we would have one good defensive season, then a bad one, then a good one, then a bad one. Then at a certain point, we just had 2 bads in a row. I don't know what happened. It just got worse. Last year, we were one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and the year before that, in the 2022 season, it wasn't much better. So, hey, man, let's keep it pushing with another stat. If you're looking at the screen right now, here's the graphic of wide receiver core speed. We are apparently 9th out of the NFL with an average speed of 4.41. Well, technically tied for 7th, and that's throwing in Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Luke McCaffrey in there to have an average of 4.41 speed. The Kansas City Chiefs are the fastest, easily #1. Then you have the Falcons, then you have the Dolphins. It's surprising that the Dolphins are at #1, but I guess Odell Beckham's probably holding them back a little bit. Then you have the Giants, then the Eagles, then the Seahawks, then the Packers, then the Browns, and then you have us, the Washington Commanders, in a 3-way tie with the Packers and the Browns. So, I mean, there's that. So technically we're tied for 7th as far as having the fastest wide receiver core in the NFL. The Rams are dead last, which shows you that speed isn't everything, because because that wide receiver core of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and I'm assuming they picked up Allen Robinson. Is that the Robinson I'm seeing right now? Wasn't he with the Steelers last year? But either way, that receiver core, at the very least with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, is very deadly. So speed isn't all that important. I mean, you have the Bengals, who have one of the better wide receiver cores. They're 24th. So this is not like a ranking in wide receiver talent or production at all. This is purely just speed, and it shows that there's a slight correlation to great wide receiver play and speed, but not a direct one at all. Not at all. Also, super random stat before we move on to more statistics, JP Finley pointed out back on June 13th that Giants head coach Brian Daboll is 1-8 against Dallas and Philly since taking over as the Giants head coach, but yet he's 3-0-1 against Washington. Never lost, and I feel like that's something that's pretty obvious that a lot of us probably remember, but I just wanted to point that out since JP Finley went out and tweeted it, just to remind y'all how bad we've been against the Giants recently. Hopefully we can change that this season, because even last year there were no excuses. Daniel Jones wasn't even playing. We went against Tyrod Taylor one game, and then it was that other quarterback with the agent that's been going viral the next game, and we lost both of those times, I forgot. I just remember we didn't win. We couldn't beat those guys to save our lives, which is just absolutely insane. I don't know why we can't beat the Giants. I don't know why when we play them, Kayvon Thibodeau has the only good games he has in his entire season of that year. I don't know what's going on. Also, moving on, Pro Football Focus has the odds to win the NFC East division. They have the Eagles at 40%, as you can see, the Dallas Cowboys at 38%, and then us tied with the Giants at 11%, which is pretty interesting. My whole thing with people doubting us and assuming that we're not going to be really good year one of this rebuild is just we got to go out there and prove it. I mean, I don't expect anybody to give us the benefit of the doubt, even though this is a completely new regime, not only just player-wise, but coaching staff, front office, and even owner now. I feel like, I mean, this is as clean of a sweep as we've probably ever had in the entire NFL out of any organization other than being an expansion team. You can't get any newer than what the Washington Commanders have done going from 2023 to 2024, unless you're just a new team being created like the Carolina Panthers a little while ago. That's it. So, but I still, at the same time, I can understand why nobody would give us the benefit of the doubt. They got to see it, and hey, man, let's go out there and show them. I'm excited. And then next up, as you can see on the screen right now, here is a chart of the price of a 16-ounce beer at every NFL stadium for next season. And boy, the NFC East in general is really expensive. As you can see, the Eagles are #1, the most expensive. The Commanders are right down there with the Dolphins, Giants, and Jets for the 5th most expensive. And then the Cowboys are right below the NFL average of $9.56 at $9.50. And then you have all of these other teams way below them. And it's just crazy because the Commanders and the Ravens play in the same exact state, and the Ravens have been far more successful as a franchise the past 20 years, and yet somehow we're charging almost nearly $3 more per 16 ounces of beer than the Ravens are. That was one of my main observations. Like, I don't know what we're doing and how that's working. And then the Falcons one, I'm not surprised because the Falcons have some of the cheapest food and concessions of any NFL stadium. I mean, you can literally go there $20 and get a full course meal basically. And you know, as somebody that lives in Atlanta and has gone to games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I love it. I'm afraid to go to other stadiums to see the Disney World airport prices that y'all be dealing with, man. Doesn't sound fun at all, and that's a pretty good representation of who's the most expensive stadiums in the NFL. And I don't know who the Eagles thought they were. And then lastly, another statistic here, penalties per game last season, as you can see on the screen right now. And shouts out to the Commanders. This is one statistic where we're actually kind of on the positive side. I mean, we're not as good as the Chargers, Bengals, and Raiders, but we're that next tier of at 5.0 with the Lions, the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Patriots, the Giants, the Rams, the Steelers, the Falcons, and the Jaguars. Then you have the Eagles worse than us, and then you have the Cowboys way worse than us, and then there's a gap, and then there was the Jets. So, but Jets, y'all got to get it together, man. That's unacceptable. That is highly unacceptable. Now, moving on. I thought this was interesting enough to bring up in a Rico report because apparently new Commanders running back Austin Eckler explained why he and the Chargers ultimately ended up parting ways. He went on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. He said, quote, "They wanted a guy to hand the ball off 200-300 times a year. That's not my game. There was a misalignment there. No harm, no foul," unquote. So he's basically saying that it wasn't anything malicious. They just had a certain way that they want to use their running backs. I'm not down for that. I prefer to be more of a receiving back and things like that. But what I thought was the most interesting was the fact that I don't think I've ever remember hearing a running back complaining about getting more carries. I mean, I know he's a third down back. I know he's aging, so he probably wants to take less hits. He wants to be utilized more in the passing game than the running game so he can, you know, hopefully get better and more lucrative contracts going down the road of his career to be seen as more of like a receiver than a running back. I understand, but I don't think I remember ever hearing a running back complaining about how many carries they're getting. If anything, they're always complaining about how little they're getting. Remember the whole Adam Peters situation? I believe it was with the Saints, how he was so angry that he was not getting the ball more. I feel like it's far more likely to see a running back complaining about the carries that they're not getting than a running back like Austin Eckler basically saying that I don't want that many carries. I'm good. I don't want to be the star of the show. I don't want to have to carry the workload and things like that. I thought that was interesting. That's why I wanted to go ahead and include it in this Rico report. Also, moving on, CBS Sports columnist Pete Prisco released his top 100 NFL players going into the 2024 NFL season. Just to let you know, the Commanders players, none of them were in the top 100. Not one. Now, at least Jonathan Allen and Terry McLaurin were listed as honorable mentions, but as far as the top 100, nobody. And I feel like that's a pretty extreme slight right there. But again, we just got to go out there and prove it. I'm not going to even sit here and get mad at people for doubting us because we went 4-12 last season. We had the second overall pick for a reason. Who are we to get upset at people for how they view our team right now? We just need to go out there and prove everybody wrong. We can show them better than we can tell them. So at the end of the day, just go out there and play well, win games, and all of the respect that you're hoping for, you'll get it naturally just by winning. Also, for the Commanders Madden 25 ratings, they came out. The top three for the Commanders are Jonathan Allen, 89 overall, Terry McLaurin, 89 overall, and Bobby Wagner, 88 overall. I mean, even beyond just Terry McLaurin and Jonathan Allen, who have been dealing with this franchise for the past few years, I can see why you would doubt them just because they've been a part. They have the Dan Snyder stench on them still, just a little bit. But Bobby Wagner just got here. He's never been in the same room as a Dan Snyder, on the same team as Dan Snyder has ever owned. And Bobby Wagner, even though he's up there in age, is coming off of one of his best statistical seasons of his NFL career. It's pretty crazy that he's not even top 100. At least give me Frankie Louvu. I mean, we just talked about over a week ago how Frankie Louvu was ranked the second best linebacker in the NFL. I forgot who exactly did it, but then I think it was Pro Football Focus or somebody else that said that we had the best linebacker group in the entire NFL. Like literally number one, even over the 49ers. So I'm surprised that at least one of the free agents that we brought in, Austin Eckler, somebody, is not at least in that top 100, just off of the fact that they don't have that Dan Snyder stench around them. But I guess once you just sign up to wear a burgundy and gold uniform, you're immediately underrated, you're immediately hated on and overlooked. So we'll see how it goes. Again, we just got to go out there and prove everybody wrong. I'm not worried about it. It would be nice to get some respect, but hey, we just got to go out there and earn it. Then also next up, Samuel Cosmi went and exposed to the Washington Post that former Commanders offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy reportedly did not allow players to wear a hat backwards last season. Quote, "That was something that we as players, at least on the offensive side of the ball, weren't allowed to wear our hats backwards," unquote. And this is a really interesting debate topic because I feel like, yeah, like hindsight 2020, it's like, man, Eric Bieniemy was just overdoing it. Like, you would just, that's too much. That's taking it too far. That wasn't even necessary. Wearing your hat backwards does not mean you're just automatically not focused. You're not going to win games. You're going in with a loser mentality or anything like that. You're a distraction. You know, of course, hindsight's 2020. But if we were winning games while Eric Bieniemy was enforcing this policy, after what we had to deal with Ron Rivera and those guys being so nonchalant, we were hyped about Eric Bieniemy coming in and being like super strict and super militant about certain things. So if we were winning games after Eric Bieniemy had this no hat backwards policy for the offense, we would have just automatically concluded A equals B. No hat backwards equals winning. That, I mean, that just would have been the fair conclusion. So I mean, hindsight's 2020, and I don't feel like this is as ridiculous as a lot of people are saying, because again, if we were winning, then nobody would have questioned it. We would have just assumed, okay, not wearing our hat backwards means that we're focused, means that we're ready to win, and we've gone out there and won. But since we lost, anything that you do while you're losing, people are just going to assume that those things that you did were wrong. And apparently, you know, that's just another crazy story coming from the whole Eric Bieniemy situation with this team. Now, moving on, Daniel Snyder's Riverview estate in Mount Vernon just went on the market for $60 million. He paid $48 million for the place in 2022, making it the most expensive home in the DC area. That's really interesting, but Resh Manuel brings up a great point. He quote tweeted that and said, "There are some who will suggest Dan Snyder won. He made billions off the sale of the Commanders and is selling 2 homes for close to $100 million total. But at what cost?" And we're not talking money. He's no longer even welcome in his own hometown. He didn't even have to win. Just at least have moral integrity. And even if he would have been a loser of an owner, at least if you had some type of integrity, you weren't over here stealing money from the season ticket holders, from the NFL and things like that, maybe people could at least have respected you and liked you at the end of it, and then you would actually be welcome in your hometown. Now, you're not allowed. And that's the crazy part, because Dan Snyder, as terrible as a person he was, as an owner he was, at the very least, he was a die-hard burgundy and gold fan. That's one thing you can't take away from him. And so I'm pretty sure it does kind of have to hurt that he has to separate himself from the organization. But at the same time, I feel like if he really cared as much as he acts like he cared, he would have done a lot more things as far as upgrading the facilities, making the fields better, treating players' families better. Y'all remember those NFLPA top free agency destination grades? We came in dead last 2 seasons in a row since they've been doing it, and there were a lot of fixable things in there as far as like the cafeteria meals for the staff and the players and the coaches and things like that, how they treat players' families, travel accommodations, like how the flights are and things. We ranked dead last in a lot of things that were controllable like that, so there's really no excuses. But still, you know, maybe he's up over there hurting inside, wherever he's at, different country, I don't care, I'm moving on. Also, the Commanders have partnered up with a couple of more partners. The Commanders announced a deal with WSH Channel 9 as an exclusive broadcast partner all the way back on June 4th. The Washington Commanders and CBS affiliate WSH 9 have announced an exclusive television broadcast partnership that includes increased coverage of the team through 2 new WSH produced shows, including a weekly pregame show and 3 Commanders produced shows. The agreement also gives the station exclusive rights to broadcast the team's non-national preseason games. So if you're wondering where our non-national preseason games will be, that's where they will be for us to watch. Because just to remind y'all, that 3rd preseason game against the Patriots, it will be in Landover, Maryland. Jaden Daniels versus Drake May, that's going to be nationally televised. I think they have like 1 nationally televised game each preseason week, and then that 3rd week they have 3 of them, and we're one of those 3 because I guess people really want to see what Jaden Daniels and Drake May look like in the preseason going against each other. So outside of that game, there's that. So here's the actual schedule as you can see on the screen right now. You have the game plan Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Commanders kickoff Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Commanders weekly Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Command Center Saturdays 11:35 p.m. and the Players Cubs Saturdays at 12:05 a.m. just to give y'all that schedule. Now moving on, I thought this was really interesting, not something very important, but Deani Brown recently posted on his Instagram story all the way back on June 4th this picture right here, and basically saying support, nobody's around, but when you're doing well and once you succeed, everybody's around. So it's basically like he's keeping notes and keeping receipt of who's basically doubting him for when he goes out there and balls out. And I'm rooting for him, man, because if Deani Brown can live up to the potential that even somebody like a Chris Sims had for him coming out of the draft a few years ago, that could make our wide receiver core go from, you know, a lot of potential, pretty good, to potentially elite. If Deani Brown lives up to the hype that a lot of people have for him coming out of the draft, we could have easily a top 10, top 5 wide receiver core. It's a lot of it has to do with how much he balls out in the receiving part of things, because he's arguably our best blocking receiver, even a better blocker than Terry McLaurin, you could argue. And then he's shown some flashes as being like a deep down the field targeting guy like that, an explosive, take the lid off of the defense guy, even though he's not that fast, which is a really interesting thing. He's not like he's like a burner with speed. He's like in the 4.4s, like 4.45 or something like that. He's not just this elite speed guy, but still he's shown an ability to get open deep down the field and catch passes, you know, a lot of the times when it happens. He just has to work on having consistent hands, no more concentration drops. We need him to become a better route runner, to get open underneath a little bit better and more often, things like that. If he can improve as a receiver, nuance wise, and become a great receiver, this could be a deadly receiver course. So I'm rooting for him, man. I really am. Really am. Now, next up, really random news, but the Washington Commanders have now hired Barney as the new team dog. Now, of course, if you're looking at this graphic on the screen right now, they have him named as a wide retriever. Get it, instead of wide receiver. I thought that was fine. They have some really interesting and adorable stats for him and things like that. Just something super random that's being announced. They have a new team dog, Barney. Barney is an 11-week-old black Labrador retriever. Well, he was 11 weeks old back on June 4th. From the Warrior K9 Connection, a nonprofit organization that breeds and trains service dogs for our wounded service members and veterans. So shouts out to that boy Barney. I like that, man. Y'all know I'm a huge dog lover, as you can see on the screen with my dogs that are on the screen right now. So just something random. I know it's not super important, but I just want to give y'all every random update. I don't want y'all to miss out on any Commanders information, no matter how small and random. Next up, this is a report from the New York Times. Apparently, Seahawks GM John Schneider gauged Bobby Wagner's confidence not through his all-pro play or locker room leadership, rather the self-efficacy required to negotiate his own contract. Now, the Commanders are banking on that faith to aid their rebuild. And it's basically an article explaining how Bobby Wagner is teaching the Commanders, not only just the players, but just everybody involved, how to basically win through the lessons he's learned with his time with the Seahawks and things like that. And it's not even just on the field wide, it's also off the field as well, and like how to coach the players better. Like, he's helping the coaches out. Ken Norton Jr. even said it a couple of weeks ago. I think it was during mandatory minicamps. He was like, sometimes I refer to Bobby Wagner to help me like find the best way to communicate with the players. He's like a good middleman between the players and the coaches, like a translator essentially. So I just think that basically this article is proving why Bobby Wagner is so important for this franchise. And again, there's even information about him even negotiating his own contract and how he's basically putting Commanders players on game as far as that goes as well. So he's probably talking to a lot of the younger Commanders players to help them with that. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, super random, but shouts out to @JDanielsMVP for this graphic, as you can see on the screen right now. This is the evolution of the burgundy and gold logo, aka right now the Commanders logo, but of course it started as the Redskins, went through a lot of different evolutions, then it ended up being the Washington football team, and now it's the Washington Commanders. This was super random. @JDanielsMVP posted this June 23rd. I was like, you know what, let me save this to throw this into a Rico report, just in case if anybody cares. Super random, not important at all, but again, that's the point of these Rico reports, to just give you as much random things as possible. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm gonna try to work on giving y'all maybe like a monthly Rico report, or if enough random things happen, I'll just come out with another Rico report by like next week or something, because it's just a lot of random things going down. I'm not expecting any big major changes for the Washington Commanders before we get to training camp. I think the rookies report as soon as July 19th, so we have at least until then before any major Washington Commanders news start to happen. But then again, I didn't expect them to go from Eugene Shin to Brandon Sosna, basically moving Eugene Shin out the way, and then they made like 25 different changes to the organization with certain promotions and title changes, role changes. Even Doug Williams got a promotion. If you're interested in finding out about all of that, I just did a video on that a couple of days ago if you want to deep dive into that. So my point is, I'm saying that I don't think anything crazy is gonna happen until July 19th, but then again, what happened a couple of days ago, I didn't see that coming either way. But just to let you know, I'm working on Rico reports, I'm working on rookie film sessions just to keep y'all busy, keep y'all entertained until any major Commanders news happens. Maybe we sign a free agent veteran like a left tackle or something, who knows. But either way, no matter what, I have so many video ideas that I have content for y'all every day. So stay tuned, and I really appreciate y'all. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. Also, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I know it's all over the place. That's the nature of a Rico report. So whatever topics you felt the most passionate about, which ones you cared the most about to comment on, let me know those. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything that I said. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. Do not leave this video without subscribing. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later with another video. I'm out.